Allegiance. Jeremy, can you lead us off here?
I certainly can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't mind if you sit there. I'm going to recess the school board meeting and open the public hearing to discuss warrant article number 9, which is to repeal SB2 in the town of Madison. In the packets that were available at the back of the room, did everybody who wanted one get one? Oh, Heather's passing them out.
So did not get one. I'll be right back.
You didn't?
You have one.
In the packet, we have given you information on SB2 No Way. Basically giving you the information back and forth as to why it's good, why it's bad, positives, negatives. Here, I don't think our intention at all is to read through all this documentation for you. But it is a public hearing, so we are going to allow public comment to discuss the information related to the warrant article to repeal SB2. It is a 3/5 vote by ballot at the March voting. I will open the floor.
It's very quiet. No?
Sure, come on up to the microphone. Please come up and just state your name so Janet can get you in the minutes, please, and thank you. Oh, look at that, they're setting it up. It looks like karaoke's gonna happen.
You're good.
Nicole Nordland. If you could just verify, we kind of just touched on it in the last meeting, and I've seen it happen at another school in our district or in our SAU. If a motion is made on the floor in this style to add money, for example, and the people in the room vote to add the money for a specific reason, that the school board does not actually have to apply that money for that reason, because I have seen that happen. When another school vote, it was, money was going to go allocated to a certain position and teacher, and then it got used for something in the administrative line.
So that is, if there is a motion on the floor to add, say, $100,000 to the budget, it is a budget, so it to the bottom line of the budget. Now, we'll say that this is very recognizing what the intent, the motion is for, and trying to obligate that, but a bottom line budget, it does not need to use the exact intent given.
It's very quiet.
Sorry, no more questions. Just kidding, Ron.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Ron Force. Question, Jen Board. You folks have SB2 for many, many years. Why the change and why no?
The question came up many years, and it was brought to me to warrant article, and I listened to people in our community who need to put it as a warrant article. So brought it to the board's attention, and the board agreed to put it on the warrant. I believe there are people in the town who like to go back to town meeting style for the school board, as the same way we do for the town. I think based on historical data and what over the years, is, you know, people said, well, there was very, very low attendance. We went to SB2, but over the past few years, our deliberative session has been has had a very, very low attendance, and then it feels like we'll go to the ballot and not as educated about the questions that they're answering as they would or could be if they were sitting in the room when the questions are being moved.
Good evening, Donna Vayu. On the page of the handout, you just, as a board, you just start to vote on S2. However, on page 2 of your handout, it says SB2, no way. Can you expound on that?
This is just an informational packet from the Department of Education, and Mike, answer that for me.
Part of the public hearings show both sides of the of whether we want to continue with SB2 or a traditional town meeting, and this hearing is to show both sides. So when we show the educational information in here, there's a lot of information here that's also very pro in explaining the technical advisory on SB2.
Mike?
This page would suggest that the school board's not recommending it. Not recommending, recommending the appeal, repeal.
I see what you're saying. There apparently the packet is printing. If you look at the page numbers, it's odd numbers. So apparently it didn't print every page. So that was a technical mishap, if you will. So we'll make sure you get the full packet.
Thank you.
Heather, do you have page 2 there?
Let me go
Oh.
copies.
I can run down and make copies.
I can do it.
Right.
For some reason, we got the odd pages.
I'll be right back.
Right.
I think it was supposed to be double-sided.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Hi, Robert Dubois. I'm a firm believer in SB2. I also believe that the town meeting should change to SB2. Reasons being is, as I've seen things, you go to the deliberative session, there's X amount of people that show up. When you have regular voting, it's just like what happens with a federal election. You have deliberative before you have election day in November. So people can do deliberative before you have an election day. And everything should be voted on a certain day, and absentee ballots should be allowed. Otherwise, a lot of people cannot go. We have grandchildren in 3 states throughout the union, okay? We have social commitments, we have family commitments, we have doctor commitments. We haven't been able to make it to the town meetings as often as we'd like. So, right now, we're only able to vote on school budget. We're not allowed to vote on the other. If you take a survey of most of the people in the town, there's a lot of older people, okay? I've now been more active on Facebook too. I posted the meetings for tonight. Some people are writing back, they knew nothing about this, okay? So people aren't even aware of the meetings, of the deliberative sessions. It's not posted enough for people to know, okay? I believe I went to the website for the township on the calendar, and it doesn't show you in that main calendar all of the meetings that are taking place tonight. So how are people supposed to know? You have a 5 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, and a 7 o'clock meeting. It's not known to people. Now you want to only be able to allow everything to be voted on only if you come to a town meeting. Somebody responded to me, we've been doing that in New Hampshire since the 1800s. Well, guess what? It's time for change. If everything's going to be done to the 1800s, let's go back to the taxation of the 1800s. You know, you have to evolve.
Thank you. Well, that's why there's no recommendations on it. Yep. Question?
Damon Steer, My Daily Sun. To Nicole's point about bottom line budgets, that's the case in both traditional and in SB2, right? Like would there be any difference in terms of bottom line budgets and school board's ability to allocate money?
Mike, bottom line budget's bottom line. Is Mike gone? Oh, he meant to make copies, sorry. Bottom line budget is the bottom line budget, no matter how you vote it, yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Donahue again. We have the opportunity to adopt a RSA if we choose. I don't know the name of it, of the number, that would limit an increase of 10% on the school budget. Anybody familiar with that bill? It just passed. George,
I am
help me
not.
out. That's correct.
Sherry,
How
do you
would
know
this
that?
affect SB2 or the repeal of SB2?
I believe that the change in how we vote and the change in whether we're SB2 or not would not affect that in any way, shape, or form. Because it's just SB2 versus non-SB2 is the way we would vote.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry, did you have some more information on that?
No, I do know what she's talking about, but I can't remember the
Actual, okay.
actual RSA number. Somebody did read about it.
Okay. I know.
George Epstein, speaking as an individual, not as an elected official. I was going to wait till pages 2 and 4 arrived so I could really find out all about this, but I guess I'll just dive right in. A couple of things. First, Nicole, absolutely right, and I try to emphasize that at both the town and the school meetings, that the school board and the select board are executive branches of government. They have a lot of freedom to take that bottom line budget and spend it as they see fit. I can tell you that in 39 years as a moderator and 10 other years before that as a citizen, I never saw the school board or the selectmen in New Hampshire, excuse me, in Madison, maybe in New Hampshire, but not in Madison, completely ignoring the will of the people. And one of the benefits of a traditional town meeting is that you have that debate, you have that discussion, and the school board gets that feedback that says, gee, I'm not just voting for the lower number, but I'm voting for it for these reasons. I want this position eliminated, I want this added, I want more basketballs, whatever it might be. And so the bonuses associated with a traditional meeting is the amount of information that our elected officials get from us. I think there are two ways to look at it, or two approaches to considering SB2 or not. One is philosophical. The fact of the matter is that the SB2 form enabling people to vote on election day and not having to attend hearings, not having to attend deliberative session in order to vote stuff up or down is more convenient. It's easier. There's less time, and the gentleman who spoke pointed that out. It's inconvenient. To have to sit and listen to your neighbors and their feedback and their opinions and their debate. It's inconvenient to have to prepare in the sense of coming up with the wording of amendments and your particular thoughts about what you'd like to have passed, and to think it through even before the meeting, as well as what you learned during the meeting. So it is more time consuming, and that's part of pure democracy, when each of us is a legislator, as opposed to just a voter. We're each a legislator at a traditional town or school meeting, with all the authority of a legislator, a member of Congress, a member of the New Hampshire legislature to debate, to amend, and to vote the actual outcome of a particular piece of information. So it is more convenient, it is easier, it's less time consuming. School meetings are generally fairly short because the warrants are so much shorter, typically 5, 6, 7, 8 warrant articles. So school meetings were held in the evenings, and they were about 2 hours typically to go through those meetings. But that's not as convenient as walking in, voting, and going home, as it would be just on March 11th. So that's one factor. And the other factor in terms of philosophy is how important is it that the electorate is well informed. So we were here the other night, and there was a discussion of replacing the floor in this gym. And in the end, the tiny group of people who were here for the deliberative session, much smaller than we ever had for a traditional school meeting, decided to add $125,000 not to the operating budget where you could spend it as you saw fit, but to a warrant article limited to capital improvements. And so that discussion had a couple of important pieces of information in it. One described injuries that kids had been experiencing here, concussions, broken arm, things like that, that might influence someone to vote in favor of that capital expenditure. But it was also pointed out that the capital improvement plan had for 2027 the replacement of this floor, and other people might say, well, let's wait until the capital improvement plan comes around to that, and we have that smoothing out of our taxes. So people who are going in to vote on March 11th, I'm going to guess that a minority, and I'm going to say probably a small minority of the people who are going to go in and vote will be aware of those two aspects of it, the injuries that have been occurring and the fact that it's in the capital improvement plan. And I think there's a lot of advantage to having the voters being as informed as possible. And if we had a traditional school meeting, it would have been debated, discussed, probably with an audience 3 or 4 times as large, and it would have been decided that night if it was a traditional meeting. So you have that philosophical question. Is it more convenient? Is it easier? You can have more voters at an election day kind of an event, or do you want the voters who are actually making the decision to be as informed as possible? So that's one aspect of the tug on this, one way or the other. I think the other aspect is just practical. SB2 is a law that was cooked up by the New Hampshire legislature, which, if ever there was a flawed body of decision makers, that would be it. One of the core aspects of that is this whole idea of a default budget. And if you look throughout New Hampshire, and certainly here in Madison, what you'll see is that the flexibility that's afforded to the administration and the school board in creating a default budget, which is significant amount of flexibility, particularly during a time of declining enrollments where some things just go down in cost. You find that the budget proposed by the school board and the budget that is the default budget are pretty much the same. They're roughly 1% different year in and year out. So we have this glorious right to go vote on March 11th, and we get to pick between two numbers that are virtually identical, year in, year out. Some years the default budget is higher than the school board's proposed budget. And so, yeah, you got a right to vote, and more people tend to participate in that vote on election day, but you have no meaningful differentiation. You don't have a choice. You have essentially the same number in both cases. And this school board, unlike previous school board members, has said, this isn't right. And I hope, and I'm asking you to vote to place a recommendation on the ballot from this school board to do something that most other school boards around the state haven't done, which is to support the end of SB2 and going back to a traditional school meeting. And the reason I'm both admiring you for doing it and why it's relatively rare is because you have such utter control of the budget under the SB2 form of government. You control the budget that's proposed, and you control the default budget. And so by making those two things virtually identical, we have no choice as we don't have the opportunity to come here, increase the budget and decrease the budget as we did over the years. We don't have the opportunity to provide you feedback as to how we would like things to be different with a significant number of people attending. And you're essentially giving up power, which elected boards never do. This is terrific. If you would stand up and take a position on this and say, no, this is something we want to hear from you on, and we want you to have the ultimate control. We don't feel the need to have that kind of control. So I'll leave it there. I'm happy to answer any questions about history, but if you go back to I'm sorry, I have to do the arithmetic, the 20 years or so where I was in Madison but was not the moderator, and the 30 years or so that was not under SB2, the town acted with wonderful degrees of responsibility. They discussed positions that were needed, positions that weren't needed. They asked for and created new programs. They eliminated programs they didn't like. We put in place the really unusual and very powerful set of class ratios are in place here in Madison. That was done by one of those big meetings. We made decisions about taking our little wooden schoolhouse and turning it into what we have today. And at the same time, we made other decisions not to move ahead on staffing for positions that we didn't think were necessary, expansion of programs that we didn't want to get involved with, pushing to the town, the recreation, and really causing the of a recreation department, because the school said we don't want to be in that business. We think the town can do a better job. Schools made good decisions, and those decisions were based on a broad number of citizens participating who were very informed and very involved. Thank you.
I listened to all the points just made. I don't see it as an inconvenience to come to town meeting. I find that there are times when I just have other obligations that need to be done. As far as deliberative sessions, which he's mentioning, it makes total sense, but we have deliberative sessions. We were just having one the other day with school budget. You can do the same thing as what you would do in a town meeting. You have a deliberative session for school budget, you have a deliberative session for town issues and articles, you then have voting. It's the same thing that goes on with the federal election. Right now, I feel congressionally squelched that I can't vote if I can't make it to that town meeting. I don't feel that's right. When I've seen different statistics, and if you look at how many people actually come to town meeting versus how many people vote in a November 11th election, okay? What's the difference? There's a lot less people that come to town meeting and vote as opposed to a regular national election, because people can't make it and people don't vote. So realistically, it's unfair and it's unjust that people cannot vote. The deliberative portion can be done before that voting time frame. I'm not saying to get rid of it. You can still have your deliberative sessions. It doesn't have to be the same day and everything voted that day. You can go through all your other gyrations, explaining, wanting to change the numbers. You can do all of that and then have a voting day.
Mike Vayu, I just had one question. Maybe does the excuse me, Madison TV have any way of tracking the number of people who use their services to find out meetings? I know I can get everything on my phone. Like you say, a lot of people are really busy. Are the members of our community accessing information and are educated to vote? That's a quick question, if anybody could enlighten us on that aspect.
Ada I work for Madison TV. We can see the number of viewers on our YouTube channel, which is where we live stream the meetings. We don't know how many people watch it afterwards from the town website or from Channel 3. We don't have those statistics, but there's no, it's just viewing it, though. I guess that's the point. You can't interact online or anything like that. So.
Or against SB2. It was brought up to us a lot of times that we should get rid of it. So Jim thought, asked us if we thought it was an okay idea to let the townspeople decide. So that's what we're doing here. Just want to make sure that we're not saying that we're for or against this.
Marcia McKenna. I think the deliberative session that we have is the same format that we would have at a town meeting style school meeting, where the people on the floor hear the argument and then vote that night for the up or down to the budget article. But in the last, I don't know how many years, but every time the attendance goes down and down and down, so it becomes less people making decisions about the budget and having their say as to what they think the budget should be or not be, or what programs should be supported or deleted. I mean, I feel that the deliberative session, as with this gentleman, is the same as the meeting. The only thing different is that that vote doesn't happen that night. Now, maybe the electorate who votes at the voting day is not as well informed, but I have to believe if they cared, they would be informed, and if they don't care, they either didn't come to the deliberative session or didn't choose to inform themselves, because, unfortunately, there's so much apathy about everything these days. My personal feeling as a former educator, when we went to the SB2, it wasn't in the town where I worked, but I could just see the teaching staff and the administration just a little more relaxed, because they knew there weren't going to be great unexpected cuts to the budget that they didn't anticipate and weren't sure how they were going to handle. Again, because the discretionary part of the budget is so small where those cuts would have to be made. I also feel that every year the Madison board and the board in the town where I work too works so hard to bring the budget in, fully aware of the burden on the taxpayer, and that there was no extra to be cut. There was no padding in the budget. It was just the bare bones budget that was needed, again, because there's so many programs mandated, and because there are so many expenses that are not really negotiable. The maintenance of the school, the oil bill, the buses, I mean, all those things are pretty much fixed in the budget. So once again, I know the anxiety that the teachers felt in anticipation of a meeting, because they didn't know if they were going to have a job next year or not, or what was going to be cut, and because they're the boots on the ground people who see what the real impact is on the student body when there's a big cut, because it only truly affects the teachers and the regular ed students. I don't know what the answer is. I think there has to be, down the road, there's going to have to be some real hard looking at possibly consolidating schools or doing something. No town wants to give up their school. It's just a really hard issue on many, many fronts. But I do feel that the SB2, especially with where we don't know what's coming with the Department of Education and at the federal level, and how that's going to impact state level, and with the legislation being proposed now in Concord to cut different criteria and make graduation requirements. I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen, and I feel that the stability of a budget with the SB2 format, allowing more people, or the people who are interested, to participate, and more people to vote than the few people that show up at these deliberative sessions, is still the best answer for Madison.
Thank you.
Damon Steer, Conway Sun, and this might be kind of a silly question because I know enrollment's going down, but I know that parents are passionate about their kids. I know taxpayers are passionate about their taxes, and the school district budget is always larger than the town. And I was kind of just wondering if anybody thought there could ever be capacity issues in terms of if you had a really hot button annual town or school meeting and everybody wanted to vote, where would they vote? Because that would probably overwhelm the gym. But that's probably not in the realm of likely, and I don't know if George has historical data on that, you know, the old school meeting compared to the current town meetings, if capacity could ever be an issue.
There is that potential issue that the number could exceed the capacity of the gym facility that we're working under, but he's got his running sneakers on tonight.
Yeah. Real quick, the average attendance at a traditional traditional school meeting was about 3 times what it is a deliberative session. 300 or so was about the most number of people who would come to a traditional town or school meeting here. We did have a meeting with about 600 people here when briefly there was the Chicago Mountain Cooperative School District, when Tamworth, Madison, and Freedom explored the possibility of building its own high school when we were considering the contracting with Conway on an ongoing basis. So there were 600 people in here. Whether that was legal or not is probably an interesting question, but they were from Tamworth, Freedom, and Madison.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Motion to adjourn. Second by Jeremy. Any other discussion? All in favor? Carries. Okay. Thank you very much. Next meeting is 7 o'clock.